Just didn't have anything to know what was happening on the wings. They didn't have that vibrating thing on that joystick, whatever they were having. So I was thinking in that term of if this forced feedback philosophy is employed somehow in learning something in a guidance-based way, what would be the things? And I started reading a lot about these things. But while I was doing research, I was thinking that whenever we design something new, we always claim that this is going to make our lives better at some point of time. And that's why we make new things and design new things. And that's what in the world of wearables, this is what is happening, and we're claiming and we're gathering as much insight as possible of ourselves and claiming that at some point we use this to make our lives better, to improve upon ourselves. I did a lot of research, but these 4 examples sort of stood out in my viewpoint. I still wasn't sure what I was doing, but I'll start with this example here because this is called haptic forestry, and it was done by an interaction designer. It was like he simulated a control system of a crane because in his research his user group was those crane operators, and his research showed that there are a lot of information coming in, and for over a long period of time that made the crane driver fatigued about that thing. So he cut out all the information that was coming on the screen and replicated and played all the information into the controllers themselves by moving them, and his research shows that they quickly adapted to it. And one thing that caught my attention in his thesis was he said that he designed it in such a way that they can override it at some point. Say in the controllers, if they're moving closer, if the operator wants, he can pull it back. So that overriding thing, like when do you override something, that was something that caught my attention. This example, it's called Project Ghost. It was again, when these data and insights are used to make our lives insightful and better. Here they were claiming to make people who are visually and orally impaired, to make them as efficient as Olympic athletes. So the system, what it does is it gathers body data of those swing movements and things like that of Olympic athletes, and then when you take it out from those people and put it back to normal people, it sort of nudges them to make those same movements. But in some ways it was still passive to my viewpoint, because the decision was still yours to make. It was not sort of in a way doing, acting on you. It was acting on you, but the decision was still yours to make. A lot of people have recently tried to commercialize these kind of things, and it's very popular in gaming world. Dexmo, a few days back, this Kickstarter came in where there was this, so you are trying to sense and feel the virtual world. So say you are having a sponge ball in that virtual thing. It was like an Oculus Rift accessory. So say you are in the Oculus Rift, you are seeing this ball and you are sort of trying to touch it, and it sort of gives you the same sensation in your fingers, like the same reflex and same reactions. That project also got my attention, although it had nothing to do with the force feedback per se, but it was gathering a lot of information and it was delivering them over time to the people who were working in an assembly line, if I'm correct. It had a lot of sensors that were actually gathering a lot of informations that are needed over time and delivering them, something like Google Now, over time, to them on a screen fitted on the thing. But one thing that was common between all of these things was except the first example was the feedback that was being delivered to the person who was using them. So in terms of applying this force feedback philosophy and the machine and human relationship, bringing back into learning, I was confused what I can make, and it's because I wasn't sure about the technology itself. So I sort of decided to make it a research project and exploring the technology itself and its different nuances and its behaviors. So the aim of my research actually is to understand these different modalities of ownership and control when we talk about scenarios of learning system and force feedback being employed into them, if ever they're employed. I want to understand what are the things that govern our human perception in some ways, and those nuances, little nuances and different modalities attached to it. The way I frame my research is essentially, I mean, this is a very broad thing and you have to define a context, but I wanted to still generalize it in a way. So I designed my experiments and my research on a particular topic area, and that is kind of drawing. Say, how to learn drawing with the machine. And then I tried to gather my insights and sort of generalize them so that these things could be applied more in any context where this technology is used. And where I see my research going is essentially sort of giving it back to the knowledge bank, where if you in future use these kind of systems ever to use, at least you should have those considerations back in your mind before using this technology. As I said, so this was a kind of research project, and this is very much of an experiential thing, and I had to make, I have to test it on people, and I have to do some experiments. So I set out on the path of making the prototypes. Now if you remember, I had made the finger arrangement, and I wanted to take it to a next level, and I gave it one more dimension. So I sort of hacked an old printer, make it a little bit more elegant looking, and attached the finger strap to it. But soon, again, before even testing it, I came up with this shortcoming of this is that it's clearly one-dimensional. It was just like, so it cannot be like a drawing per se. So I could have applied even playing piano. That is something I was thinking. But then I want the system to be a bit more flexible and a bit more tangible. So I wanted to give it 2 dimensions on a flat surface, and I started making and thinking about the prototypes, and I think with objects rather than just sketches. So I started, this is my first prototype just to understand the mechanics. So it was like a, something that sits on a table fan with small servo motors, and this was like good prototype, and I tested all my softwares actually on it in some ways. This is the second prototype. I thought I'll not have to make another prototype after this, but you know, things happened and stuff broke. It wasn't working, it was too heavy, all that kind of thing. And so I made a more fancy and lightweight version of this, which is up here. I'll show you a few moments. And I designed it in such a way that these are very modular, and I wanted to carry out multiple experiments on them so that I can snap fit and change their configurations on the spot while my subjects are sitting, and program them very quickly and like just put together very modular arrangement. So you can see like where the servo motors go and fit this kind of a bit mechanical abstraction of the systems. And one more thing I wanted to see is, I just didn't want to have a very qualitative reflection of what they are saying, because what happens generally, in my viewpoint, in research when you talk to people, is like what at the end of the day what we have is what they tell us. Even though we sometimes adapt to these cooperation methods and things like that, what happens at the end of the day is, even though we tell them speak loud and things like that, but what we have is, again, just what they tell us. I wanted to have a quantitative cloak around this qualitative analysis. So I just quickly put together myogram system, like where you actually measure reflection, muscle reflexes, where they are operating, because if the machine is forcing you, you might have a reaction back. So I wanted to see at what point exactly they are doing that, and I wanted to establish sort of conversation from those points, just to ease out the conversation. And this is what it looks like now. Very cyborgish looking contraption. So time for some experiments. In first experiment, what I did was I pre-programmed the machine with the motion, just my motion, and set it out there. And I asked them to put their hands in the machine, and just that. I didn't give them any other information. I asked them to hold a pen, put their hand in, and that's it. I wanted to see how much they trust the system, where is the dilemma that is happening when you don't have a clear understanding of the goal. How much empathy do you have towards that machine? How much fragile the machine should be, or how much robust the machine should be? Do you put why should you put your hand first of all in the machine? Things like that, you know, it's like, If it looks like very strong, like I don't know if I want to put my hand in it, might break my arm or something. If it's too fragile, I don't care about it. So I wanted to see those points, and so here's what happened there.
I'm not in touch with the ground because that's the most natural form of when you start writing. So to me, the distance between my pen and on this level felt very unnatural to me because whenever I'm writing, it's like this wrist is supported, so I'm like, I'm confused.
You're confused, right? And why is that exactly?
Because I don't know what it's doing. I don't know what it's doing.
Me too.
Yeah. Felt just like someone else guiding my hand. It was kind of like being in a roller coaster almost, because you get like, strapped into the roller coaster and it just takes you somewhere.
Okay, do it.
Should I do it again?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, done, and let's play. Done.
And there were times that the machine was doing something, but I had my natural force to oppose it, and I was just drifting with that. Like this battle between me and the machine. It was like, no, go this way, no, go this way.
So it was clearly a very uncomfortable experience for both of them actually. And so when I pulled data back together, I was sure about it. Like, well, I understood it, but how do I prove it? So you can see clearly, like they started from being surprised. I don't know what's happening, and then confused. And the second phase, when I gave them a chance to record themselves and let the machine replay you back, you can see it was kind of, now it was not confused because they kind of knew that what they were doing and what the machine was trying and helping them to do. So it started from surprise, but eventually now you can see the cards are definitely not confused, even though it was somehow going up and down, but obviously better than before. In the second experiment, what I did was I extended the machine, and now I enabled the machine to look at an object. In this case, it was simple shapes like rectangles and circles. And I asked them to draw those rectangles and circles, what they were seeing on the table. And the machine was also programmed to look at those objects, shape, and draw it. And I asked them to do it together, like put your hand in and just draw what you were seeing. So I was interested in seeing the difference in perception. Now you have the same goal, but you might have different perceptions, right? Machine might have a different sense of shape, size, starting point. You might have completely different. So I wanted to see where does the break point happens, where do you negotiate, if you negotiate at all, or if you comply with the machine, you just go along with the machine, or you react or reject throughout the whole process.
Yeah. So did they know that the machine was going to try?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I did it in two phases. In the first phase, it was like the machine was just looking at it and trying to draw it. And the second phase, now the machine was looking at the shapes and was also gathering my data and was trying to draw something the best fit the way it could draw, rather than just doing it its own way. And I wanted to see both the exposures. Like in this case, the machine was just drawing in its own way. In this case, it's also considering your will. And those are the two softwares that I sort of presented for that. So let's see what happens.
And that's the square, that's the rectangle. I'm not giving you any shape or size, just rectangle.
So I'm just supposed to force against it.
I don't know, just draw it.
Okay.
Stop, I want to draw a circle. Oh yeah, that was almost there.
So here it's actually the machine sort of learned from his behaviors.
It was hard for me to figure out, or I tried to understand if it wanted me to, if it was only shape but also size. In the beginning, I knew my direction of drawing rectangle was not the way that this was when written in. So it was, when I wanted to do this, it was going in the opposite direction.
It's hard for a machine to know how everybody draws or where it's going to start. So without knowing how you draw the first rectangle, then maybe it would be able to assist you on the second. But I don't think it would be able to know on the first one.
Initially, there was no feedback from it, and I was trying to force a lot of it to do something. It was not getting to do anything. And then once once it got behind it, you moved a little bit or you did something, I could freely draw a circle. It would, and this could be a tool for me to if I repeat something like 20 times, then all of a sudden I know how to do it. Then it's all about repetition and understanding movements and stuff like that. So if I'm doing something wrong, then something which holds me and guides me will definitely help. And
So in the first phase, when the machine wasn't learning anything and just trying to draw, you can see their reactions are very much linear. Not, you can say per se, very comfortable. But when the second phase, when it was trying to draw the circle, and it was trying to learn from the subject as well, and you can see, I think you might have noticed, the Arun was drawing it really, really fast, because that's when the machine sort of knew how he was drawing, and he complied. And the experience became a little bit more okay type, you can say. I did another experiment just to see how it goes with a single subject, and I wanted to see what happened in the transitions. So I performed all the experiments with a single subject, and I wanted to see how his viewpoint and his thoughts change and his experiences change. With an added layer of a complex software where it was now taking a live image and trying to draw that. Because now this time, even though the goal is same, the starting points and ending points are like really, really long, and it was not a simple shape. It was a very, very complex scenario around. And so the machine might have a different starting point altogether, and it might go to completely different, a lot of different paths, and not just one different path or two different paths. And so again, the same goal. But most essentially, I was looking at the transitions. So.
So tell me about how that. Well, what happened was when I was drawing this, when I started drawing this one, it started forcing me to do in the same directions.
but I smartly drew something different. Here, if you see, the lines are going crooked on here. But at the same time, I was trying to understand that, and then I was creating the lifts in such a way.
Just creating lifts required machine.
Let's do it over here. Go. And take a shot. Stop.
Over.
Seriously? Holy shit, man. What you're just doing is just understanding me. It's like, but then again, it's forcing you, right? In the next step, it's forcing you. It is forcing. But at least it is understanding me.
So, the most important thing here is that the second scenario where it was kind of the complex drawing was really confusing. It was really strugglesome for them, and the whole process was like really a struggle tug of war between him and the machine, and it was really confusing. But the last page you can see it went really smooth. So what I gained from all of these experiments, valuing guidance-based system. Well, there is no value essentially if you ask somebody to do something what they don't know, and especially in scenarios where you, as an additional layer, you employ a machine to help him. It just creates some distraction, and in certain cases this might create a dissolution of functional reliability, as we call it. Paula mentioned it, like she was not sure if the machine was working correct. The machine was working correct, but it was not, she didn't know what it was doing. This example, the tiny picture you're seeing, it's like developed by a guy for his kit called Touch Type, where it vibrates along the fingertips, and they had a pure goal and specific word to follow, and they were doing that, and they're following that guideline, and it was okay. I'll just go to the insights and then we'll do it. And acceptance and better synchrony. Yeah, when you accept something, when you understand the machine is understanding you, synchrony happens, and then from that proficiency increases. Distribution of control, which was the main issue of ours to see, and we came up with this very clear thing that the distribution should be done in such a way that the control distribution should be done in such a way that the machine doesn't take over it, but you can take over it at some point of time if it's needed. Functionality and design is completely context-based. For what purpose you are designing those machines with that system. If it's like a very specific thing, like a remote surgery here, it can be a very static system, but if it's, you have to design portability, your context should be like that. Relationship between people and the medium shouldn't be harmed. They should be conserved, and they should be taken care of when you are designing something using forced feedback. So all of these insights, I'm trying to use them as considerations for future design process if we ever use forced feedback systems to design something, use them in developing learning systems. I'm still working on a lot of other things. Like good research is never over. There are a lot of things to look, take care of, and see and evaluate. Yeah. That was me. Thank you.